Hey everybody, welcome back. Good to have you here for Markets and Sectors. Mike Fairborn. Today, folks, I wanted to take a look and see maybe some of the sectors out there that are giving us some indications or where we might be able to spot really what we're in terms of where we might be seeing some signs of strength, because we're not really necessarily seeing strength across the big picture perspective of the market, but maybe certain areas that were not strong previously they might be showing some strength. So we'll definitely take a look into that. And let's go ahead and get started here. But yeah, welcome to all of you. We've got Ken, Life in the Fast Lane, Robert Boucher, we've got Scott Reisberg, and Kevin. Welcome all. We'll be getting some chat help momentarily. But with that, I wanted to go ahead and get going. And there we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, folks, let's start off with some disclosure items to get going. Information here is for general information purposes only. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as a sole means of investment research. Now, the paper money software application is provided for education purposes only. Investing does involve risk, including for some products more than your initial investment. Futures and futures options trading does involve substantial risk. It's not suitable for all investors. Some final points listed there. And lastly, wanted to note that past performance is no guarantee of future results. Historical data should not be used alone when making investment decisions. The Stacks is not a tradable index. All right, well, let's get going here. Take a look at some of the market activity we're seeing right now. We're going to take a look here at refining some of the data that we've got in terms of recent strength and weakness among sectors. But first and foremost, I want to take a quick peek at just the general market range right now. I wanted to see over here on the S&P 500 index, just see how we were holding up today. Folks, we did make a brand new high over here outside of the DeepSeek announcement. As you can see right here, we got a little bit of a dip, and here we are recovering back a bit. Now, this bounce right here actually is holding near a very interesting level of support that resides right through this line here. We bounce back today. So the real question is can we get another follow through day? Of course, we would take us up to this prior high level, and then we'll have to see what's going on there. But a lot of activity to kind of break down with us with you right now. Looking at the advanced decline line first, down below, look how well we bounce back off the advanced decline line off this recent spike, going back, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So the number of advancers relative to decliners out there for the NYSE, so the larger basket of stocks out there, a little over 2,800 stocks, actually did quite well. There was a good spike back. We came very close to the prior high levels, but not quite there. So it's going to be a question, can we continue higher in terms of the advanced decline line? Now, you want to remember, you want to just keep in mind something that this is a different view. So we're looking at the SPX up top here, but this is the NYSE down below. Actually, the reversal that we saw here on the NYSE was actually really quite strong relative to the NYSE itself. Let me pull that up right now. It's just NYA. I'll just adjust this real quick so we can get these kind of comparable. But you can see that there's not like a negative divergence like we saw with the S&P 500. We have to line it up correctly with the same index. But you can see we did not make a new high over here, and we did not make a new high over here either. But we came very close, and that still is a sign of strength within the larger basket, really, of stocks that are out there within this group. Okay, so that's something that we really hadn't seen before. In fact, we'll get into it here in just a second. Before I do that, a couple more things to dissect here for you as we look at some of these additional indicators on the market. You can see over here, both for NYSE indications, we do have the McClellan oscillator, which is an oscillator and it will fluctuate, but we did kind of reach a top end of the range at this prior high level, and we did dip down below. Now, the McClellan says if you go below 70, if you're above 100, which we did do, then there could be 2 to 3 weeks of a sideways to possibly even downward range. The only difference is here is that we always want to look at any of these indicators in the direction of the trend. That trend can be spotted by using the summation index as well. We have the trend of the stock, excuse me, the underlying index, which has been showing some really good strength. In fact, that was an all-time new high right there. Anytime you're hitting all-time new highs, you have to say, all else equal, that's a positive. It's an indication that the trend has been up, and we can see over a 1-year time frame, that's a very, very strong trend. But specifically to the McClellan oscillator, the summation index is actually, which takes a look at a longer time frame, has begun to rake back up again, rise up higher above our line in here as well, and the direction is to the upside. So when we look at this 2 to 3 weeks, it may not be weakness. I mean, it can be, but according to what we're seeing here, it may not necessarily be weakness. It could be a sideways, and sometimes it can be even sideways to up, according to the McClellan oscillator. So we'll see on that specifically, though. But let's dive in another layer deep. And this is what I wanted to point out to you. So we saw the SPX-EW over the same time frame. Now let's kind of just observe this for just a second. I'm going to put in here the standard SPX relative to the SPX-EW. And I'm going to point that out to you by we'll do a comparison study. So a comparison over here. And the default is always SPX, which is great, because now we're going to look at it from a market-weighted perspective, and we can kind of see what's happened over here on this side. So more recently, this recovery in the SPX-EW was actually really, really quite strong, even relative to the SPX itself. So the SPX had been holding up fairly well. The recent pullback in the SPX, we haven't seen much of that in the SPX-EW. That is the equal weight. So that could tell us that there are other companies out there, that make up that broader basket of the S&P 500 that have actually performed. They're starting to perform again. Now, what group is that? That's something I want to definitely take a look at today. Let's hit a couple more pieces of information before we get into that. But the Market Watch tab, just to define that again and just explain it a little bit better. By the way, here's the SPX-EW right there. Oh, welcome, Bob, from Michigan, and others just joining us now. Okay, that's the SPX-EW. We're looking at equal weight. And what that simply means is we're not looking at a market capitalization weighted index. In fact, what we're doing, and I'll go right to the SPX right now, the S&P 500 specifically, and I want to go into visualize, and here is our heat map. So this just gives us a visual on a market capitalization weighted basis. In fact, the bigger the block, the more the market capitalization you're seeing. NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, will have a bigger influence on the S&P 500 itself. But as part of that, the SPX, really SPX-EW, takes basically all of these same, what you're seeing here, blocks. If we could make them all the same size, they would all be the same size. I think that's probably even too big for the S&P 500. So it's an equal weighted index for the S&P 500. Gives us a sense of market breadth. In other words, what have the laggards been doing? Have the laggards in the past now become maybe more of leaders? And if so, what group is that? Because they're starting to show strength and they haven't done so for a while here. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and go to our next one over here. So this is just looking at the NYA. So again, a larger basket of stocks within the NYA. So again, still keeping breadth in mind. Look at the move that we've had. It looks a lot like, and although we don't have the right side of it up yet, it's kind of what they refer to as sort of a rounded bottom or a W bottom. But the move right here is the one I want you to focus in on. This is really, really interesting strength coming off this support level low. And now, even with that DeepSeek announcement, that Chinese AI, we're still just going flat. Some of the strongest patterns out there in terms of a bull flag that traders might agree to, some of them that they will say, I should say, traders will say, one of the strongest patterns is that flag pattern that just goes sideways, because it's keeping all of this additional strength in here. And again, we're talking about 2.8 thousand+ 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 2.8 thous That's a lot of little notes. Uh, Stocks in here, okay, in that group, and we saw something come up over this time frame, and it's actually holding its strength. There can be sector rotations out there, and that's one key thing that we do like to talk about in this class because we can look at markets, but sectors also, really, really important to keep an eye on. So let's do this. Let's take a look at what else we've got here, and then we'll kind of break down some of the sectors too. You can see up top, so McClellan never really actually reached above that 100, so we don't actually have an indication when we're looking at the larger basket of breadth out there in the market. Not just the S&P 500, but that 2,800 plus companies. And remember, it has to get above 100 and then come back down to signal that 2 to 3 week possible pullback. But we are getting still that positive indication in terms of a sharp reversal that we can see over here using a little more sensitive oscillator here, the McClellan oscillator, but the summation index specifically. Pretty good move. Okay, now the Hindenburg-Omen looking at 52-week new highs and 52-week new lows. We'll get that spike if in fact that occurs. I believe we did get one on a weekly, and we might have got a couple, which is why we normally view this. Let's go to a 3-year weekly, and you can see that there is a spike in here, and this can create sort of a chasm within the market. If the 52-week new highs and the 52-week new lows, if these become comparable, a lot of times you can get a big breakdown in the market. Now, what did we just look at across the broader market? We saw in the NYA specifically, this is a weekly chart, but we saw this bounce right there, that recovery. That's a positive indication. So even if we did get a Hindenburg-Omen, we have to keep that in mind that we bounced up. So what does that mean? It means we probably got more 52-week new highs as of late. We did get some omen spikes down here, but the thing that we always like to address here with these omens, do you guys remember what it is? It starts with a T. And what is the underlying trend doing? Wow, we're getting these omen spikes. While we're getting indications, there are 52-week new lows that are starting to creep up. Trend is up. That was a higher high. That's still, you could say possibly a lower low right there, but collectively, it's still doing okay. I think the trend would change if you were to see a breakdown here. And that's the question. If that were to happen, things can change here pretty clearly. But we have seen a strong spike. And as we looked at on the SPX EW, the equal weight, as well as the NYA, folks, it's a tight bull flag. Generally, that's one of the stronger, let's say, stock sort of price patterns out there that traders will look for. And we saw a huge bounce back in advancers versus decliners. So keep that all in mind. And by the way, a quick note over here, when you got these kind of spikes over here, just to kind of highlight when it does get bad, remember the trend we talked about? So the trend over here is up, but the trend over here had been down, lower lows, lower highs. Just another friendly reminder. You have to put a lot of these indicators in the context of the trend. If you start to see weakness here, you got a lower, lower, lower high, and you get these significant levels of spikes, well, that could foretell weakness, which is exactly what foretell. There you go, an omen. It could foretell weakness. And we might not be seeing that right now because the trend is up. So, but we can watch it to see if the trend does break. But that's actually a very, very positive sign, given the fact, too, that we are in a long, extended upward trend. Okay, Riceberg says Monday's dip may show up looking at, oh, that's right. That's right. So you could see that, the 5-letter word. That's right. Trend. And it's a 6-letter word if we're talking about trends. Yeah, exactly. You got it, Riceberg. All right. Fantastic. Got Connie here in the chat with us. We're all set. A quick note. If we come back over here, I'm going to jump out of this for just a second. Before we break this down into sectors, you're going to want to hang around for that because aren't you curious what's creating that move and the equal weight? We've been waiting on this for months, and now we're right just about ready to get it and find out what the heck's been lifting it up so we can see what maybe sectors could be showing us strength. But Um, look over here with me on the NDX. So just a quick review as we look at markets over here. So NDX, all else equal, folks, I mean, that's pretty strong. Here's the weekly chart. I mean, there's your upward move. And what have we done over this time frame? Well, I'll tell you what, we've gone somewhat sideways through here. Now, if we look at the full context of this weekly move, that's a very, very sharp move up, and we've gone sideways. Now, we're just coming back to like a daily chart. This looks a lot like, or could be, a flag pattern, right? Now, we've seen weekly flag patterns. In fact, look over here with me. I've got just some great examples. I've got a 10-year chart up here, and we're just looking at the 2020 time frame, 2020. Look at the spike that came up over here. Sharp upward move. Notice this sideways range. Break up, another sharp move, sideways. Another big move up. We had a pullback and a rally. Now, just keeping our eyes focused in on this area here. Did the trend change? It did not change. We got similar highs and higher lows. Interesting. Higher low. Similar highs, a higher low, and we got to follow through. Here's your high. Here's your low. Similar highs. Do we get a higher low here after that deep seek? Well, that's the question. It looks, though, like a lot of strength coming in here. We don't know how high this can run. Obviously, when you're hitting all-time new high territory, it's a little bit interesting. And, well, the trend is still up. So NDX, I just wanted to show you that as well on a weekly basis. Okay, back to what we were looking at over here, because we want to do a deep dive into some of this data, just using tools and just seeing if we can spot where that strength is at. But let's take a look at it right now. And so let's get our time frames down first before we jump into the Market Watch tab and use a ThinkScript that I've used in the past to kind of help us with this. But let's do this. So first off, down below, we're going to go ahead and use our little drawing tool. That's our diagonal line. I'm just going to point back from today. So here we are from today back to basically those lows. About 12 to 13 bars back. I'm just going to say 12. We're talking about market days here. There are more calendar days. There's 15 days, but everything we're doing like on ThinkScript is really looking at, well, everything I've programmed in ThinkScript has really been on the bars themselves, so the days. So I'll go ahead and look at 12 days back on this. So let's scroll on over here into the Market Watch tab. Hello to you, Thea, as well as Dragon Ride and others joining us here. Wrong. And Ricebird, great to have you all here. Back to our Market Watch tab. We're going to go back to quotes here, and we're not going to use the MACD crossover. I used that earlier today, filling in for old Ben Watson. What we're going to do is we're going to come over here, and I'm going to throw in a 1-week ThinkScript. It's colored, and so it's really quite nice in that regard. And we can just kind of see what's been happening over here in terms of numbers coming in. Can't we? Let's see. Well, let me take this one off. If you get too much data on the S&P 500, it can create, I think we're okay though. Let me just see. I probably don't need to, yeah, it got it all. If I try throwing in one more column, it's probably going to say I've maxed out my data. Okay. Remember, with ThinkScript, it's not guaranteed for timeliness or accuracy. Keep that in mind. Wow, what's happening to Micron? Just 1 second. I've got to see this. MU. Oh, yeah, it got hit. EA did as well. Oh, my goodness. Electronic Arts. That was a big hit. All right. Daily charts. It's fascinating what you can see if you get these in here. Remember, the ThinkScripts aren't guaranteed for timeliness or accuracy. And simply, they just take this data that we've created in here, and what they do is as long as the data from the platform, which is, we have good data, as long as that data is coming in, then that ThinkScript should fit because the math, lines up. But I just had to note that. Okay, it is a 1 week though. So we want to go back 12 market days. I'm going to edit that formula and pull it up and just show you what I'm going to do right now, because I can share this with you guys for sure. This is going back 5 days. Oh, well, that doesn't help. There we go. If you want to learn more about the codes, I do discuss that within the ThinkScript class, and we'll do those on Friday, where we can break down the different codes. But you'll notice what I'm doing. I'm just taking a look at the time frame that made more sense to what we were looking at over here on the SPX EW, SPX EX, SPX EW over this same time frame, so we can kind of isolate and find out what was really moving over this time frame. I mean, in other words, what had on the S&P 500 some of the best percentage returns, because we want to look at it. We're looking at a big basket of stocks. We want to find out specific percentages, right? That's what we're focusing in on here. What were the percentages over this time frame? So we're going to do that by going into the Market Watch tab right there. And I've got this, although it does say 1 week, we're pulling this up and we want to see the positives, not the negatives, although you might want to look at some of the negatives. So we click it again, and that's where our positives are. So we have a description here, but were there any particular sectors or, that we saw in here that were really coming up frequently? And then we can look at specific stocks. This is going to show you kind of the minute level of stocks themselves. But if I go over here and just right click, customize, we can go ahead and throw in a sector now and see if there are any correlations to this time frame. Again, I'm sorry, it's not a 1 week, it's a 12-day. That not add in? Hang on, let's do that one more time. It is there. It says sector right before change. It's going to be very, very, is it there? It is. Wow, okay. So let's just pull this over here so we can see what we've got. Okay, so these are some of our key numbers in the S&P 500. I should say key industries, the sectors that match with the performance over not 1 day, but 12 days, market days in terms of performance. Okay, and so a lot we have in the double digits. I'm going to just highlight a few in here. So, there's only one healthcare. There's a couple of industrials, a couple of consumer discretionaries. Now, the financials really start to kick in gear. Financials, down here. There's a lot down here as well that could be looked at in terms of financials. Now, you'll also notice with this healthcare, if you come on down, there is some healthcare starting to move down here too. Right through here, there's another one here. Looks like that's all I'm seeing. But of course, we can still scroll down and look at double digits. The idea here is to break down and look at maybe some specific stocks that have shown some strength. Now, many of them have probably done this on the chart. They look like a bull, they've run up, but maybe some of them are flagging like the S&P, SPXEW, the S&P 500 equal weight, or the NYA, New York Stock Exchange. And that's kind of the idea here as we look at strength. Now, there are ETFs out there, that you could look at to play some of the sectors at specifically. But I want to look at some of these stocks before we go into that group, because we've kind of identified a way to look and see where the strength of the SPX EW was. We're in the S&P 500. And some of these have been laggards, but we're going to look and take it a step further as we go into it. By the way, there's also materials and industrials in there. There's only like 3 information technology groups, but Palantir is one of them. And so let's do this. All right. But maybe some specific names that could just be leaders in that sector. So I'm going to go over here now, and we're going to go to our charts. We're going to try to correlate some of this data that we're looking at within our 3-month sector grid. Okay, so a lot of data here within the grid, and let's look at it specifically. So we've got over here, here are materials. Now, some of these, we just saw materials, quite a few in there, as well as industrials, which is right over here. Do you guys see what I see in terms of the possibility of a flag pattern here? Industrials looks even stronger. I sent a little tweet out earlier this week on industrials. It was one of the strongest groups that had one of the highest profit margins above its 5-year average of all the sectors out there, which is interesting because it's a little bit, this trend has been holding up a little bit stronger than materials. As you can see, we've kind of been in a sideways flat zone in here, and now you're getting a flag with a possible higher low, and we could extend. So, hey, what's going on in industrials? What stocks can we take a look at there? Investos is kind of like, the Thinkorswim tools are helping us kind of spot this a little bit. Now, if we look over here too, so we do have materials, and some of these materials are going to be stronger than others. So we can look at those. We have a list of those companies that we can actually pull up. So we're going to look at those specifically. But like I said, some people do like to just look at trying to play an entire sector. These haven't been participating for quite some time. How long has it been? Well, I don't know what this date is, but I can zoom in on it. Let's just do that real quick. I'm going to zoom in on both of these, maximize the cell grid. Well, we don't have the month, but I can just point to it. That's about October. That's been pretty down since October. We haven't had a rally like this since October, not to this level, and holding here. Now, this was a smaller rally, and it went for a shorter period of time, and then it really crashed hard. This is a little bit different. Now, will it hold or not remains to be seen. Let's go ahead and just go one forward ahead. Should be our industrials right there, and there you go. So industrials kind of came close to that higher point. It did dip a little bit, but still a bit of a flag formation here. And with the flag, again, there could be strength. Some, like I said, will like to trade or invest in or whatever, trade the ETF on a group, for example. But we can also look at individual stocks, which I will do. I'm going to click on this to pull it back up. Folks, if you don't have this and you like it, let me just share it with you right now. Oh, let's see, share grid. Yeah. Let me double check. Share grid. Okay, and I can put this too under the description box under more for those of you that are joining us on the recorded session. But let me just share this and plug that in right now. This is not a script. I'm sorry, this is just a grid. So there it is. That's our 6 month. I'll just do that again. 6 month grid chart, sector chart. There you go. That's this. Wait a second. Yeah, that's the same link. Okay. Cool. All right. So that's kind of flagging off, showing some strength. There are maybe some other companies within consumer staples. That's really interesting because within consumer staples, we do have dividends. And every once in a while, the market will rotate from dividend stocks, I should say from growth, which has really been in a lot, to income, which is kind of like dividend paying stocks, as well as value type stocks. And you can find some of those in the consumer staples. Since I brought up dividends, I just need to state, though, that dividends are not, anytime you look at dividends, they're not guaranteed. They can be cut at any time. But sometimes, traders will look for, like the dividend aristocrats, for example, some of the longer term indications there on those. All right. So I should say the longer term indications of consistent dividend increases. Some traders, investors will look into those areas when they look at dividend paying stocks. They have a history of raising dividends. Of course, they can still cut the dividends anyways. All right. So having said that, this was our consumer discretionary that was in the group, and it's gone sideways. So definitely a change over the last couple of weeks since we've had this discussion. Financials, we saw there were a number of financials coming in. That's, I believe, just barely breaking out or on the cusp of possibly breaking out if it hasn't already, or breaking new, I should just say, breaking resistance levels. You can see down here that technology is in question. We gap down to the bottom. Can that bottom hold, or can we break out above the top? Communication services, still strong, clearly breaking above some highs. I would say general weakness is still in real estate. That's kind of a really weak rally. Utilities rallied up and then, kind of dipped pretty sharply back down. Energy had a flag pattern, and it still kind of does, but it's really kind of waning, but you can still watch it for possible strength. And there's our healthcare that's been down for, I think this was actually maybe September, August timeframe we've been down, but I think we broke a trend line here, and we're just starting to get up a little bit higher. So what stocks can we look at within any one of these groups? And that's what I wanted to focus in on for a bit, and then we can continue on with some additional market information. But while we've got it, let's try to isolate it and see where we're at. I'm going to go into the scan tab now, And what I'll do is I will take a look. We've got to go into the stock hacker right here, right up top. So the scan tab, sub tab, stock hacker, S&P 500. We can take a look at specific uh, industries as we go ahead and pull this up right now. This is one of the nice things that we can do with this. In fact, we were looking at industrials, select all those industrials, and there are a lot of individual industries within here and sub-industries. As you can see, there's an industry, there's sub-industry. We're just looking at everything so we can kind of spot where the strength has been. Okay. And let's see, I'm going to just change this 3-month to not 65 days. We'll just go to that time frame we were looking at, 12 and 12, just to see where the strength has been and see how that lines up. Oh, okay, click OK. So we've got that set up. This is just simply going to scan that group and tell us how many stocks are, how many industrials are within there. I'm going to take that out and we'll scan it right now. So we've got 76 companies, actually quite a few companies in the S&P 500 that are industrials. In fact, about, well, 15% or so. A little over 15% of the companies fall into that category here. Let's take our 3-month out. It's still loading. And we'll get this loaded up. I'm going to take this one out for now. We'll get that pulled up. Sometimes that can speed things up a little bit too, because it is loading up all the 500. But you can see, I mean, we've got plenty in here that were red. This is not 500 stocks, and that's why it can be a little bit quicker. It's taking its time, but there you have it. So these are the companies. Now, I have an action icon in here too. If you guys have used this before, this is also something you can add as a customized column. Just anytime you click on customize, you can add it over here. But this is a send to. It's all under the code of send to red or whatever. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got 2 screens. I'm going to detach this one and pull it down, and we're going to just take a look at a few of these stocks just to get some ideas here. I'm going to run this right now, and I've got that linked. So since this is linked, I'm going to go ahead and click on each one of these in my charts, go back to my charts that are linked in red still. Okay, and this is what I have on my other screen, and I'm just going to go through and click on each one of these, and you'll notice what happens. It updates the screen so we can just see quickly what these stocks are doing in industrials, and there you go. So we're going to start seeing a few of these sort of bull flag patterns. Now, I will caution you on this if we're not looking at individual sectors. We're looking at the breakdown, or I should say if we're not looking at the basket, the sector itself, the basket of companies in the sector. We're going to be looking at individual stocks, and with that, well, we always know that we've got earnings right over here to be mindful of as well on a lot of these companies. But that is the best performer BLDR right there. That's up 20% over the last 12 days. So let's just continue on through here and see a few more that we can possibly spot. Okay, here we go. So John Deere, okay, making new highs. And that was a beautiful run. That was a fantastic kind of a, wow, I wouldn't even call that a bull flag, but it was kind of a zigzag because you kind of ran up, you pulled back here, and you had a sharp recovery to the upside, as you can see right there. But it too does have earnings. Really a great rally. Okay, this is what we're talking about. We just got into like some of these companies, GE Aerospace. Anything interesting here? Based on our sector analysis, diving down, drilling down into individual stocks. Look at that. That's a breakout. And by the way, we are past earnings. It's a bit of a morning star pattern here. Not exactly, but it could be showing some strength. So yeah, possibly some strength in that group. If we were buying a sector ETF, well, then, this would be part of it, and probably GE would probably carry a pretty sizable role. Okay, 3M breaking above highs, past earnings. Looks like it gapped on earnings over there. URI, interesting possible flag pattern. Now, post earnings, and earnings are after hours today, as it turns out. So in about 25, after, 2 o'clock my time, Mountain Time, Maybe if there's a follow through, maybe this does flag up, maybe it doesn't, but something you could keep an eye on as well if you were looking for individual stocks. Just a few more as I go through this. Let's do one more. I think you guys have the hang of this, but anytime we see the SPXEW or the equal weights start to perform, we can go back in and try to isolate the companies that ran over that time frame, which is what we did do, just choosing the higher percentage movers and then going back and looking at different industries. This can be a very worthwhile thing to do. Okay, I'm going to show you another quick way to do this here in a second, but if I wanted to just take a look at, instead of industrials, I wanted to take a look at materials instead. I'm going to go to industry materials and select all of these, which would contain chemicals, construction materials, containers, metals, and paper products. We only have 27 here, so a lot smaller group. This should load up fairly quickly here in terms of our percentages. And we'll see what we've got over the past 12 days. Again, this is misleading because I did alter it, but let's click on a few of these anyways. I'll pull this down and let's just see what those stocks are looking like. Remember, because the sector itself showed some pretty good bull flags associated with it. Mosaic. Okay, interesting. Mosaic's been down for a while, all the way up to these highs. Can it turn the corner and break higher? Will there be a rotation in the market is what we're looking at. New highs on that. Corteva, FMC. You guys can see the moves that we've targeted specifically, and these are all in the teens, the double digits. And so you're going to definitely see some of these major moves occurring here, even on steel. That one's past earnings. Okay, well, I just want to let you know that you can all do this because you have the ability to do so on each one of your screens, each one of your computers on the Thinkorswim desktop is what we're on. To get this information, to get it quick, and to get an idea if there is going to be a rotation. Now, before I go any further on that, I wanted to show you this too, because maybe you just want to do a quick screen through the S&P 500 on what's been performing well. We can still accomplish all of that too on the left-hand side. This might be easier. I showed how to dissect it using the scan tab, but if we come over here and go into watch list, we can just pull up a 500, the S&P 500 under the publics. There's the S&P 500, and we've got it there. And all we need to do is take that script, copy it, and there's the 1 week that we changed. I'm just going to leave the 1 week in here for now, just to kind of show it to you. But I've added it in here and showed you guys how to adjust that. But we could come in here because it's already linked, making it very, very, no, it's not. Now it is. We've linked it to our charts, making it very easy to click on the best performers over that time frame, regardless of what sector they're in, and just go through and see what you like. So nice, isn't it? CVS. Okay, CVS Pharmacy there. Let me make sure I share that again so you have it. Here is the edit formula. And again, I showed you how you can change that too. So plug that in and I'll get that shared. Okay. This is a standard script. Should be done. Okay, share. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. Good, good. Okay. All set. So you have that tool to use. It's your discretion. And there you go. Oh, by the way, Dragon Raider says V-shape. Which one was that on? Yeah, you are probably on a lot of these, right? You saw a V-shape. Some of these are V-shaped, and that's kind of, yeah, what we're kind of tapping into, isn't it? On some of those companies that we were looking at, just that sharp V. I mean, that's a V. And the question is you've got, will these flag? You might have some time to look at them because they're still developing. And then how do they respond over earnings? Some traders might say, we've got 500 companies out there. We've got several within this basket that are in the double-digit range. Right over here. I'm going to scoot on down. Let's just go down. Whoa. All those are double digit right there from 10 on up, right? That's quite a few companies that have done that over that time frame. And maybe some rotation in some of those stocks from technology or communication services where we've seen that strength. And so the question is after earnings, or if they've already had earnings, will they begin to flag up from what Dragon Rider mentioned, that V shape. Because part of that V, Dragon Rider, is the pole of the flag, right? If it develops into one, I mean, we could actually even look at this one over here on BLDR. This is a bit of a V. Now I realize it shot above the prior high, but you can see the V, and then what do we see after? The flag. And by the way, there is the follow through too. But we've got a lot of V shapes out there. That's one way to say it. We found some V's. All right. So let's see. Did we miss anything here? So Needham says, is the Golden Cross for 50 to 200 only? Yes, I believe it is. Oh, 2030. Oh, Connie's made a note of that too. Yeah, I think it is the 5020. Excuse me, the 5200. I apologize. 5200. That's what I've always known it as, but I have seen the 1030 as well. All right. Does this help you guys? Does this give you a sense of how to narrow this stuff down so you can use this? I've shared those scripts with you. We've got just a couple more to look at here, and then we're all set. Unless you guys have questions. Let's do the market forecast. We're going to scoot ahead. We've gone through this. Okay, so let's dissect this a little bit too. This is a normal screen. We go through a normal chart. This is New York, NYSE, new highs for a 1 year. And remember what we said, when there's a recovery and the price of, or I should say, the S&P 500 goes higher, are we getting 52-week new highs, which is what this is? It's a 1 year high. Are we getting that or not? We have had a very small bounce here. Now, did we get a break above this level yet? We did not. So my anticipation is that we'd see a break. But what this kind of shows me right now, if I could create here for you the fact that this did not recover in terms of new highs, what I think is going on is, if I were to draw a pie over here of all the companies out there, of all the different sectors and just companies in total, I think we got basically a group or groups that are now participating of this pie that have been laggards. Some of those might be value stocks. Some of them might be, like we said, dividend paying stocks that haven't been participating before. That's what maybe some of these moves have been. Now, they're not going to be quite at 52-week highs yet. That's why it's low, where they're not really participating. Some of them maybe, but we did see some of those breaking out. But the majority have been doing what? They have been going like this. Since July, August, September, October, they've been going like this. They've had a good, strong uptrend before, but could it now be time for rotation into income stocks? You guys have a great way to find that now, right? Using these tools, you can spot it. You can see, hey, do I recognize this flag pattern? What's going on with the company? You might have, some time to do some investigation on those individual stocks if you're not using, like I said, individual sector ETFs or industry ETFs. But if you're down this low and you're an income stock or a value stock, well, are you making 52-week new highs yet? That would be above here. That's above that level. No, we're not. So therefore, we should not be expecting to see this. So even if the market goes higher and this stays down, okay, it's going to take time for these companies to get up to 52-week new high range because they've kind of been left out. I just want to put it in context. So even if this makes a new high, it's not necessarily a negative for the market because we have identified a possible rotation in the market. And we saw some companies, we saw the sectors. You guys saw them on those charts. They've been down for a while. They're a long ways away from 52-week new highs. So we can't let this screen, this data, over influence our decisions because technically we're not anywhere near those highs. Okay. In terms of, we'll finish up here on seasonality. How are we doing seasonally speaking? Actually, we're doing okay. Seasonally, from year to year over the last 10 years, the S&P 500 has gone up over here. Now, if we take out the COVID pandemic, which is like a 100 to 150 year event, hope it stays that way. By the way, we've all gone through that. I hope none of us have to do that again. We've taken it on the chin, but that substantially impacted this move down here. Generally, just like we saw last year, oftentimes you'll get a run up to about mid-March. Now, will that happen? That's all in question. We don't know. But historically, if you take out COVID, you generally will see across a number of different timeframes strength, seasonal strength up through March. So keep that in mind. That was a big influence on the markets. And when we get past that in 5 years, you might see a spike back up over here. We still have it, right? 2020, so we got to deal with it. All right, everybody. Hey, do me a favor. Bottom right-hand corner of the screen, smash that subscribe button. If you're not a subscriber already, I'd love to have you on board. And I would really appreciate it if you did like today's presentation. Just take the time, so easy to do. Smash that like button. It does literally help keep this kind of content coming up more frequently. It lets me know that you guys did enjoy it, found it useful. Talked a lot today about equal weighting and finding those laggards that might be the future leaders within our group. On that note, everybody, hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much, Connie, for your help as well. And by the way, there is a survey in the chat. I just caught that out of the corner of my eye. There's a survey. If you get the time to fill that out, love to see this. If there's something you like or found helpful, there's only 2 questions. It's very, very quick. That lets my manager know, and I read those as well. Thanks so much.